Welcome to the American MedSpa Association podcast, Medical Spa Insider. This week, AmSpa founder Thiersch is speaking with Erica Crawford, president of Influx Marketing, and Max Baybak, founder of Influx Marketing.
All right, everybody, welcome to Medical Spa Insider. This is Thiersch. Thank you for joining us. We are very, very pleased and proud to have on the AmSpa hotline two of the grand poobahs of medical marketing, Erica Crawford and Max Baybak from Influx Marketing. Max, I think you are one of the founders of Influx, if I recall, and Erica,
That's
you're
right.
currently, I know you've been with Influx for a while, and you're president, I believe, of Influx now. And
Yep.
Influx Marketing, for those of you who haven't heard of them, are have been around for a bit and have a huge presence in the industry, both in plastic surgery as well as med spa, dermatology, all of the above. But they've been doing this for a long time, and I think we can learn a few things. Thank you both for joining us. Just as a kind of a program note, I know you're both out in the LA area, so this has been an interesting time. And Max, you've got a kind of a crazy story about your brother, which I don't want to get into too much, but I do want to make sure that folks know of what's going on out there. Obviously, you've heard about the fires. You're both dealing with that. I'm sure a lot of your clients are dealing with it. Max, just kind of give me the latest. Like, what's it like out there right now? Because, we're all kind of curious. None of us are there. One thing to watch it on TV. It's a whole nother thing to be out there in the middle of it where you are.
Yeah, Alex, it's unfortunate the fires did affect my family, but I'm keenly aware being here of how many families are impacted by it. So
Right.
we're not alone. I grew up here in Southern California in the Pasadena area. It's where Influx started. Our first offices were right here in Old Town Pasadena. And I used to live up in Altadena, which was unfortunately one of the areas that got hit very badly. The face of Altadena is like really dramatically altered. And I actually did move away a few years ago from Southern California, but I'm back here we still keep an office here, and I'm here visiting my brother, who unfortunately, he and his wife and their two kids lost their home here. Luckily, they're fine.
Yeah, for sure.
But we got a chance. I'm here just to help him through some things, and we got a chance to go up to the area. They let residents back in, and it's absolutely surreal. There's something like 8,000 structures considered a total loss, and you just have never ever seen anything like it.
Yeah, and you mentioned this is your where you grew up, right? So a lot of the places you spent, the neighborhood you spent when you were young, have just been wiped off the map, which has got to be crazy.
Yeah, well, it was emotional. Of course, it's emotional for my brother to lose his home, and where we had a lot of great memories with him and my nephews, who I love, and I've been trying to spend a lot of time with them, take them off my brother and sister-in-law's hands a little bit, let them do things. But I drove by a school where both my daughters went. We drove by a park where there was this theater where my daughter used to do her Christmas shows with her school. Like all these places, just like, ugh, it's kind of gutting. But what I will say is
they're all gone. They've all just been burned down, those places that you
gone. There were people who were fortunate that stood. There are businesses that stood. There were a lot of really great new businesses coming into the area, and some of them have stood. And I think that gives us a lot of hope that Altadena can come back. But it's just such a question of like, how are people going to rebuild? There was so much character in the area, and I don't know how some people will rebuild. They're understanding all the options from FEMA to insurance to government assistance. So we'll see how it goes. What I will say is that we're just past 2 weeks into this now, and I think it's shifted from total shock, complete shock. Nobody thought they were coming back to a flat piece of black earth. And when you go up to where my brother lived, every direction, he's on a text thread with his neighborhood. They're very tight knit. They have these sort of street block parties a few times a year. All the kids play. It's really cool, the community they had. And they're all on text threads. And so they were kind of working together. But you look both direction, you can't see a house for where he is. There are other areas that didn't get hit that bad, but this is just every direction.
Yeah.
But now everyone is past this sort of initial shock. And I think looking at how do we build? How do we come back from this? What's next? And so I think they're looking at silver linings. They have their health, they have their families. Even things like we went, oh my gosh, this tree is going to survive. We saw, those are the silver linings we're looking at, because they made the area beautiful, and I thought they were all gone. But you just see little things that's kind of where I think the focus has shifted to.
Just so surreal. You're right. Like I can't even imagine. So, I mean, really sorry to hear that. Obviously that's tough.
Thank you.
Erica, we were, we're here to talk kind of about 2025 playbook
Mhm.
for marketing, new trends, things like that. I'm curious. Have you had any of your clients, have they been affected? Have you had any that have been kind of wiped out by the fire? I'm curious, how do you deal with that from a marketing perspective? Because that's a whole nother level of things you've got to work on, right?
Yeah. We actually have a client in Altadena which is, that's where Max's brother lives, right? Who
Yeah. Yeah.
actually, their practice survived, but like
Wow.
everybody else in the block got burned down. So like nobody's coming to her practice, but luckily enough,
Yeah.
like her
Yeah.
actual building is fine. But like in that
Yeah.
type of case, there's not going to be people going there and the neighbor's not going to be going there for a few months. So like
Yeah.
obviously like we're going to do whatever we can to help it out. If we need to like pause payments or do something like that, like we want to keep the marketing alive. Like if just stop SEO or stop these things, like you don't want to do that because those are longer term strategies. But on the short term, like you want to do whatever you can to help somebody. I mean, this is a
Yeah.
huge disaster, right?
Yeah.
So we definitely had clients who are affected either from, you know, losing their business or from just the fact that not like a lot of people are not able to go to their practice right now. And it probably will not for some time. So you have to
Yeah.
think with that as well. And if that means you need to just financially rework things or pause things for 2 or 3 months until things get back. I mean, it won't be back to normal, but
Yeah.
things start happening, people start coming in. You just have to think with that. I will say
Mhm.
one thing that is interesting that these fires have been an absolute just horrific disaster. But one thing that I don't think I've ever seen to this degree is how the LA community has come together. A lot of people think of
Mhm.
LA and they don't think much of a community. Like everybody's kind of out
Mhm.
for themselves and people aren't that close or friendly
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
streets. But like this has proven so different. Like for example, my husband and I foster animals. It's like a big thing we do. Our home is always open for rescues and pets and things like
Mhm.
that, right? And within 24 hours, maybe 48 hours after the fires hit, we reached out to like all four of our foster groups and we're like, we'll take any displaced animals and things like that. We
Mhm.
needed 2 days to make sure that we were like in a safe area. Um, and they were all done. Like they had so many signups from so many fosters that like all
That's
the animals
great.
had been picked up that need to be picked up, which is
Yeah.
crazy. And then it's like, okay, bringing in donations, right? Like blankets and
Yeah.
clothes and like, nice things, right? Unused things to bring in. Done within a few days of all the major drop-off places, right?
Yeah.
GoFundMe's, a lot of them were filled up quickly, Obviously, they still need a lot of cash donations. Like that is a thing because there's things that they can't get help with, like medical expenses, and that will always be needed and is still very much needed. But to see the community come together that quickly on donations and helping displaced animals and helping people and doing GoFundMe's and offering their homes and just like the neighborhood aspect of it, I've never seen anything like that in Los Angeles. And
Wow.
it's actually,
That's inspiring, right?
yeah, it's unexpected to this community. But as somebody who's lived here for 18 years, the community is closer than you would think. The community
Yeah.
is broken up almost into like sub communities. It's like what Max
Yeah, for
mentioned,
sure.
like his neighborhood, like the Altadena area, like they're close. I'm in Burbank, I know all my neighbors, I know my street, we're close. But like if I'm traveling to Beverly Hills or West, I don't know those people like the way I know my neighborhood. So it's like broken up in small communities all over LA. But there are communities here, which not a lot of people realize. But it was really nice to see them all come together. I mean, you
Yeah,
even had like the
for sure.
incarcerated firefighters, you know what I mean? That there's the group of firefighters and like people were like bringing them in and out and pizza. Like everybody was trying to volunteer and help and
Yeah.
really wanted to ask for help and how they could help. And I think that as awful as this has all been, like that is a very beautiful thing to see and doesn't get
Yeah.
reported on as much, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's always, I feel like that's
To,
always the case, right? With
Yeah.
disasters, as you see this horrible destruction and then you see that side of things too. Sorry, Max, go
Yeah.
ahead. Were you gonna say something?
I was going to say to your question about marketing and how your marketing strategies or plans are impacted by disasters, for better or worse, we really did have our first and probably the largest experience that we'll ever have with that sort of thing during the pandemic. And I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
when it hit, we thought, what the first instinct was just to literally line up a phone call with every single client, and we did, to talk through what were they going to do. Especially, it seems clear in retrospect now, but everybody had different levels of, like, I want to keep the marketing going, I want to totally back off, and we just kind of customized the plan for everybody, and we're extremely
Yeah.
flexible to what they needed. And you really realize that you need to kind of tailor it to each person's situation. There, And that's true of marketing regardless. So if they're going through a disaster, then you really need to take that into account. And I think it taught us a lot, and we can use some of that now. But honestly, as I'm even saying that, I'm realizing it taught us a lot we can use in marketing all the time to just really understand, what are you going through? What are you trying to accomplish? How do you want to address what you're experiencing right now? And how can we help best support that? So we had different attitudes and approaches to it, and we were able to adapt. And so I'm proud of that. And thankfully, there's not as many people impacted here of our clients, but for those who are, we'll do the same. And that's good learning.
Well, I mean, I really appreciate you all taking the time, given what's going on. And it seems trivial and almost a little silly to be like, well, what's the marketing plan for 25? Because like for so many people, it's just not even an option. But so thank you for taking the time. We are obviously in the middle of, we're gearing up for the Medical Spa show, which is coming up in April. Erica, you're going to be giving a talk there, which we can't wait to see. You talk, I know you've talked all over the place. I've seen you before at some of the other society meetings. But talking about 25 and, the landscape that we're in. So 2024 was an interesting year for a lot of people, putting aside the fires, which obviously changes kind of everything. But it was an up and down, very choppy year. I think it was the first time that folks, at least in the med spa industry that we've talked to, had some not down years, but just not great years. The summer was slow. Over the fall, it started to pick up, but generally speaking, wasn't the biggest and most robust year for folks. I think everybody is kind of waiting for 24 to get through the election, get to the other side of the year, and we're hopeful that 25 is going to be kind of a new fresh start. I'm curious what your perspective is on 25. You touch plastic surgery and derm as well as med spa, which is great. What are you looking for in 25? And then we'll kind of translate that into how that works from marketing. Erica, we'll start with you, and then Max will obviously, you'll have a lot of perspective as well.
Sure. One thing that I think has been really interesting this last year is the launch of LSAs, which is local service ads. So you know how when you Google for anything, right, you get obviously the paid ads come up, but then there's the map pack, right? And the map pack has your GBP, which is Google Business Profile. And that's where your reviews are. People can ask questions, your photos, that's your business profile. And then under that is your SEO rankings, your actual organic SEO. So it's three things. It's ad, local optimization, Google Business Profile, and SEO. So
you got to scroll down further and further. It's like, to get to
it's a lot. It's a lot. And a lot of people like mix them up, but those are like three completely different strategies, right? So ads, local optimization, SEO, three totally different things all on page one of Google, right? And one thing that came out that has been really big is local service ads. They're called LSAs, which basically means that you can run an ad in Google to show up at the top of that map, which is important because the way that map works is it really, really localizes you. So it's like, if you are not exactly right in the city, not just the county, it's really hard to show up in that map for a certain area. So if you're like, okay, well, I'm in, Los Angeles, but I'm a little further out. I'm actually in like Porter Ranch, or I'm in Simi Valley, or right. It's going to be really hard to organically get right into that like LA city map. It's almost impossible, right? So the wonderful thing about local service ads is that you could actually have an ad there. So in that little map pack, you'll notice that there are now sponsored ads up on the top, right? And they've only had a very limited release, meaning you could only run them on very specific subjects. Like they haven't done it for Botox or fillers yet, but they have done it for like laser hair removal, for the word med spa, and for like medical weight loss, right? So it's been slowly more and more procedures they're allowing you to run the ads for, but they perform really, really well because it's right towards the top, right? You have the Google paid ads, and then boom, people are in the map. And because it's so new, a lot of people, like as in the users or potential patients, don't even realize it's an ad. So they just click on it and boom, they're in the profile. And if there's good reviews and good photos, it's a really good way to capture patients. And this is a relatively new strategy. And I think it's important because Google business profiles have had a huge increase of search traffic. meaning Google is trying to localize you more and more. There used to be a point in time when you could rank nationally. Then it was by state. Then it's by city. Then it's by like what part of the city you're in, right? Like they're trying to, and the whole reason for that is because they want you to pay for ads. It's very clear. It's a completely 100% a business strategy.
Yeah.
But the fact that there's something you could do about that and do these local service ads and like really optimize your Google business profile, it's getting more and more traffic year after year. So like, for example, if it's like, okay, well, 80% of that traffic used to come in through organic SEO with like, let's say 20% coming in through ads. I would say it's about 50-50 now, meaning 50% are coming in through those Google business profiles. The other 50% minus out the ads traffic is coming from the organic SEO. So it's becoming more and more important. It is the place to have your reviews, to update your photos, to have patient question and answers on there, and to run ads. So that has been a huge shift in this last year. And from what we can see, Google's going to continue to push that in that direction.
Yeah, that was my question. Is this the kind of the next frontier where this is where it's all going to be? I mean, the organic, I remember back in the day when we would, you'd want to post every day some content. Didn't have to be that long. You just post it up there. As long as you're active, right? It's going to make a difference. It seems like now it's like, if you're not paying, you're not really quite and I know content matters still, but man, the way that they're able to triangulate these things and kind of force you to pay to play is interesting.
Yep. I mean, that's where Google's revenue comes from, right?
Yeah.
Is from their paid ads. Like that's where almost all of their revenue comes from.
Yeah.
So they always push you in that direction. There's still a lot of value in organic SEO, but like at this point, your organic SEO comes in halfway down page one. Doesn't mean there's not value in it, but
right? Even if it's number one, it's not number one. It's now number 10.
Yeah, it's now like 2 or 3 ads. Then it's like the LSA ad. Then then you have a few organic local search GPs, and then you have your number one, right? Which is really like number 7 or 8 on page 1 at this point, right? It's kind of wild.
It is. I'm always curious. How do you all? And this is more of a wide-ranging question. Like, how do you keep up like on this stuff when these changes are made, the algorithms are changed, it's constantly a moving target. Y'all can in here and say one thing, we're doing, LSAs, but then we'll talk again in 6 months and it'll be something totally different. It's so confusing, like to keep on top of all this stuff. Do you have like a secret app that we can all have to keep track of this stuff?
Erica does a lot of that work with our team, actually, kind of with the different team leads, but it is, I always kind of say it's like 50% of our job is keeping up. It's a reason that we actually went entirely focused on the aesthetic space. About 6 or 7 years ago, we used to represent other types of small business verticals that, for all intents and purposes, they have a very similar need set in terms of marketing strategy. They're local, they need a website, they need SEO, they need ads, they need lead gen, and it looks really similar, but how can we stay really expert on all of those tactics and really stay expert on how they fit in and integrate and work with a specific industry? And like you mentioned, we do a lot with plastic surgery as well. And factually, even that is quite different. And you know that very well, obviously, than the med spa world. But from the surface, as a marketer if you're just coming into the space, you might think, oh, they're the same. They're really not. So those nuances, the first things first is by being really focused. That's helped a tremendous amount. But then we have people on our team that spend a lot of time on this. We were just talking about Spencer on our team who does everything meta ads wise and the stuff that he keeps up with. And I mean, he's basically so much trouble in the last few years with getting ads approved and with Meta's ad policies. For one example of a thing that's sort of like a game of whack-a-mole is you get it working and then it stops and all of a sudden, you thought you had it, and then now you're chasing it again. And he became just like a meta support expert. Was just we manage enough money that enough ad spend that we do get some more resources than maybe other people do. So, but still, they change those people on us from time to time. So it's really a full-time focus. And I just really do believe that agencies will, if they kind of get good at one thing and they don't figure out, it is fundamental for us, and it's something we talk about all the time. If you get good at one thing and you aren't making sure to keep up, that's okay, but you can be sure that you'll be gone. And so we've always kind of built that into our process. I guess you could say into the feedback loop.
Yeah, for sure.
And even onto that, like I always tell people, like if you've heard us speak on like a webinar or a blog or an article, and it's been like over a year old. I'm like, don't even bother. Like things change so
Yeah.
quickly. It's funny because we've done so much on medical weight loss. You know, I feel like we've been at the forefront of medical weight loss marketing for a long time. I've done a lot of webinars with like Dr. Johnny Franco, Dr. Jonathan Kaplan. We've done a lot of different talks at the various society meetings. Matter of fact, the last webinar I did was the FDA and your medical weight loss program with Bernardano and Dr. Franco, right? And talks that I gave like 6 months ago on the subject are invalid. Like, and every talk is like, it's so different. The regulations are so different. We have to be so on top of it, but we do so much advertising for it and so much content for it. And we do really something we're actually, like I said, what's one of our strongest things, right? But it has been like, we have had to overnight completely shift strategies multiple times, especially on such a sensitive subject. So I will say that you just have to be willing to roll with it. If you're not good with change, this is not the right industry for you, because it happens. You'll have this like beautiful strategy and it's working. And then overnight, it's a bad strategy. And it's a crazy thing to actually experience, like as in your career, to have things change that quickly. But you just have to roll with it.
With the medical weight loss, it's like all the changes in your career boil down to a couple months, which the different things that come out, things are overturned. It was the last couple of months were bonkers with all the FDA lists and stuff like that. And just aside from that, the sheer popularity of those drugs and how everybody was embracing them. I'm curious how, like, that's kind of been the big thing this year. Well, maybe for longer than that, for over a year. Everybody seems to be doing it, right? Everybody is bringing it into their practices. Everybody is advertising for it. Is it getting to be as difficult, like with how Botox was for a bit, like where it's really hard to get those ads up there? Is that what's happening with GLP-1s and weight loss, where it's almost becoming impossible to get yourself in front just by the matter of sheer volume? Or is there still a way to kind of fit in? I'm curious.
There's still a way to fit in, because as much as the increase of competition is, the interest is also it's the same. So it's both like this, right? So you're going up on both sides. So there's absolutely still a way to fit in, and you can do so competitively. There is for a lot of
you've given a few talks on this, Erica, right? You've given a few talks where I think one of them was even titled along the lines of, okay, so you missed that I forget what it was, but you said something to the effect of, you might have missed this first wave, but there's still a strategy. So those people who acted quickly, I don't think would you agree, Erica? There's not going to be a way to replicate that, but there's still a great way to get in and still make a very meaningful business out of it, right? Yeah.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. What else for 20? I feel like there's trend. Erica, you mentioned these service location ads. Is that what they're called?
Local service ads. Yeah.
Local service ads. As one thing that's kind of popping up is, obviously we've seen AI be a huge thing that continues to transform pretty much every landscape. If there's, if you're looking into your crystal ball, both of you, about 25, and what folks need to really be ready to not necessarily have to invest in, but you at least have to be ready for. Like there's always certain things where when it comes to marketing, you've got to be ready to get on the train. If it's content, right, or if it's frequency of content, whatever that is, video, all those things. What's kind of the things right now, if you would tell folks for 25 they need to be ready for?
I'm Kathy Christensen, President and CSO of AmSpa. Don't miss Medical Spa Show 2025, April 10th through the 13th at the beautiful Wynn in Vegas. Use code Medical Spa Insider MSS25, all caps, as a promo code when you register at www.medicalspashow.com. See you there.
Erica, you want to start?
I was like, you just did a webinar on AI, so I think, why don't you go ahead and
Max,
start with that?
Let's
absolutely. I mean, it's always tough when we give talks on these subjects because, like you said, what do you need to be ready for? We're trying to find the balance between what's applicable right now today and what do you just need to start thinking about, and the timing of it is sometimes unknown. I think, first of all, let me say this. It's really easy as a content creator to say AI is going to change everything. It makes a great content hook and everyone wants to dial in and listen. I think the first thing we'll say is that's probably just not the reality. Certainly not for the next 6-12 months, where all of a sudden everything that you've done to date is going to be out the window and it's all new. I think it's more like, I like the analogy of the frog in boiling water, which is perhaps a little bit morbid,
Yeah.
but the idea that,
Yeah, a
if
little.
you put a
That's
frog
fine.
in a pot of boiling water, it'll jump out. But if you leave the frog in, and I don't know that this is true, but it makes for a good analogy. If you put them in a lukewarm pot and you start to kind of turn
Yeah.
the temperature up, they'll sit there and they won't notice the difference. And I think really that's how these changes are going to come around us. And that's how they have been for the last decade, honestly. We look back a decade ago from now, and there's such dramatic changes. Some of them we felt in the moment, some we didn't realize were happening until we got, oh wow,
Yeah, that's true.
everything kind of shifted around us. I think that's what you're going to see here. So the timing of it becomes challenging, but here's some of the things that I think you're going to need to be ready for. First of all, we talk a lot about investing in brand, and I've been kind of using this term return on brand, which is an interesting concept. And the idea comes from from this concept that you obviously want to have your marketing team, whether that's in-house or an agency you work with, give you really good reporting on what your marketing is doing. But you can also lose sight of the big picture in doing so. Okay, I did this many ads. This is what came, I spent this much in ads. This is what I got back. What are you doing to differentiate yourself so that when technology levels the playing field for everybody, which I believe it will, I believe it won't be any harder for you or I or any med spa down the street to market and to deploy the tactics that are effective in bringing at least eyeballs to your digital properties. I think that will become very level over the years with technology.
Yeah.
So then the question is, what's the tiebreaker? It's that brand, and that starts with your visual presence. That starts with anything that you can do to make your brand unique. Anything about you today that is in fact unique. How are you messaging that? How are you weaving that into the DNA of your business, of your marketing properties, so that as things become, this is a very kind of philosophical high level, and we can get into more brass tacks, but so that as things become kind of level, what are you doing? How are you going to break the tie? Because I think it will come down to you, not your marketer. That's the truth in the end, right? It'll be how your business is presented. Some things that I think that, we've been talking a lot about the return of blogging. You talked about blogging earlier a little bit. Is that what you were referring to, Alex, when you said a little bit of content updates? You were talking about just adding new content or a blog to a website, right?
Yes.
And it might even be a good chance for me to have you kind of talk on this, Erica, because we were just talking before this morning about it and how like there's a bit of a comeback in long form blogging, and AI is a great tool for that. But you have to temper your expectations of what you're going to do if you're going to try to overly automate with AI. But I think that's one great example of where you can use AI. I have a few others, but Erica, do you want to talk on that?
Yeah, we'll talk about it. So blogging a few years ago, if you asked me about it, like I didn't think it was that helpful for SEO. Obviously, this is what I'm talking about. Things change, right? Then a bunch of Google algorithm comes out, and then boom. And long tail blogging has become a huge strategy that we've been really employed a lot. Even just this past year. And what I mean by long tail, I mean like very specific keywords, like working out after Botox, right? Or I am getting loose skin from my Ozempic. How do I fix it? Like things that are like imagine like you're a patient care coordinator. What are the questions that people ask you when they come into the practice? Those are basically your blog titles, right? Like the very specific questions. And that's coming back for sure. And there's a lot of people who have been able to like have really good rankings from those long tail keywords, right? And that is a strategy that's been really great. And it's funny because AI has been such a buzzword, and we have done so much content on it at different society meetings, at webinars. Like Max and I have done a lot. Even though it's something we cover and we talk about, I have to tell you that like AI hasn't taken over. We saw so many of our competitors like reduce their content writing teams or like go to like just one content editor and like things like that instead of like,
and just use AI as like the supplement.
Yeah. And then they would just like have AI write the content and then just have like a person edit it, right? We have a 7-man in-house content team. We've actually only increased it since AI has come out. And we have not seen at all that AI is at a point to replace writers. It's just not. You could use it as a tool to help edit a little bit or, correct your grammar or maybe even just like look into a few different things. Like it is a great tool to use. But when it comes to content writing, back to Max's point on like ROB, right? Return on brand, like AI cannot really communicate your brand fully in content. It can't. And it doesn't fully understand how SEO works because there is like H1s, there's H2, there's certain keywords, certain ways you word things, and there's a way that you write something for SEO while also staying on brand. and AI is just not there yet. And I'm so surprised to see so many companies pull the trigger so quickly on their content writers, because something at a surface level like looks good enough to put on a website or looks good enough to send out in an email, but then the performance suffers. So it's just been an interesting thing to watch. And we tested these things. Like we definitely we try different things out for a couple of months. We're like, okay, what if we try it like this and this to see? And we're like, okay, it has its uses, but it is like humans still matter and are very much needed. And we definitely need our content team,
Well, and going to that point that for both of your points, it's like, I remember back again in the good old days, like 6 years ago, like when social media and advertising on social media was really catching steam, maybe even earlier than that. And a lot of companies were popping up that were doing, folks were outsourcing their social media posting because you wanted to get a lot of content out there. You wanted to get things posted. You wanted to be constantly in the conversation. But I remember, and Erica, it might even been you, or it was several people said, the outsourced side of things can't replace the personality of you and your practice, right? So ultimately, it's got to be you on camera, or somebody in your practice on camera. You can't have somebody else replace what you are as a person and what you are as a practice, right? And that's kind of the same thing. AI can summarize, it can provide kind of really good, almost eerie, topics that it talks about, but it's not going to be able to capture what it is that makes your practice different, special, unique. Why should someone go to you and not someone else who also has AI doing the same thing?
Exactly. You spot on.
First of all, can I say, I can't believe the good old days were just 6 years ago. That's a testament to how fast things are changing, because I agree with you.
No, I mean, it is. I mean, we were looking at so with Medical Spa Show, we're putting together our agenda, several months ago. We started putting it together, and it's kind of scary because like we have a lot of AI stuff. And then you look at it now, it's like, well, I mean, man, things have changed. Even in a couple months, things start to change, and you have to kind of pivot. So it's your industry is obviously the same.
It's fast.
Yep.
What I mean, so with social media, obviously, is still very, very big, and Instagram, and I know TikTok with all that stuff going on has had its ups and downs. We were just talking about, back in the day when people, were kind of outsourcing social media. What do you all tell people who come and they say, okay, look, I want to build my marketing plan for 2025. How much of it goes to kind of the long tail marketing, the brand marketing in of itself versus social media videos? How do you get folks to apportion all of their resources, not just money, but just their time, right? To be able to do all the different things, and how social media is still important. How important is it versus the Google Maps and the Google business page? I know it's all important, but people struggle with that. Like, what do I do? How do I allocate my resources? What do you think?
Let me say this, and then Erica, I know you have a lot of thoughts on social media. One of the biggest jobs we do is helping people to allocate their resources, is to figure out, because obviously, there's always a limitation, and there's always the need to really determine and set priorities. And that's both time and money, as you put it. One of the things we try to do is take certain things as what I kind of call a done for you service. Obviously, we want to keep you in the loop, but we take the things that really can be outsourced effectively, where having a subject matter expert is exactly what you need. And then we try to be really transparent where that's not what you need. You do need to do that in-house, and we try to offer, a bit of coaching on that to the degree that we can, and tell them again what they really need to focus on for themselves, what we can handle for them. And then from there, we might also help them a little bit to, if they might have the time and the interest to do some of that social themselves, they might need to hire a in-house person, a part-time person. Some of them have full-blown teams, as I know, have seen. At the level of investment that each person makes, it's also a little bit personal. We do spend a bit of time, and that kind of starts right at the beginning. When they come on board with us, we try to understand them, what they want to do. We try to show them what we can actually effectively do on their behalf, again, while keeping them in the loop the whole way. And then that leaves for them the pieces that they need to kind of do in-house. We have a little bit of social media support, but it's really just because our clients have asked for support with certain things. It's not where we're trying to make our business around, because we just don't think that that's the future. Even back then, when there were more small agencies doing totally outsourced social, we sort of said, I don't see that lasting. And we were just talking recently, Eric, about also diversifying away from it. It has been a good way to grow, and you should continue to do it. I have some thoughts. I'll pass it to you, Erica, but then I'll give you some thoughts on what I think is going to happen. I believe by the end of this year with social media because of AI. And again, I don't want to make this all about AI, but it's just questions we get asked, and I actually want to help people understand the realities of it, not the hype of it. Yeah. But anyway, in terms of Erica, first of all, do you agree with what I've said? And then
Yes,
what do you think?
Yeah, no, it's true. And it's funny because Max mentioned financials, and we get to work with such great companies like SkyTail and Maven as well. But, our entire business is based on long-term retention. So like here at Influx. So we're with clients for the long haul, and we are very much thinking of like return, like ROI. So it's not uncommon for somebody to go, hey, I want to pay for this. And we're like, nah, like that's not the time. And here's why. And here's what you should do instead. And we're very conscious of it at various stages. Like if they're just opening, if they're more established, if they're trying to get acquired. And I would say that we're more involved in all of that than an average marketing company, just because, like I said, our business model is based off of long-term retention, right? And I will say that for social, and I know Max kind of already touched on this, but we are huge fans of social media in-house. Social is fast. It doesn't even have to be that fancy, right? Like you just post, it's on Instagram, you post your stories and you post reels and some before and afters. Or if you're on TikTok, like even TikTok, it doesn't even need to be as professional, right? You could take your iPhone and film content and put it out there. But like, we're not in your practice. No marketing company is. No social media company is. How are we supposed to capture those special moments if we're not there? Or really be able to see what your brand fully is if we're not there. So it's such a funny thing that people try to outsource constantly. And then there's companies built all around it. But I'm like, we are not there. And that is just something you have to be there to do. You could use a company for like more of like a video editing kind of like that is where a social media company might come in value, like where you are supplying the content and they're editing it and posting it and, doing the captions. So like they're almost handling like the administrative side of it, but like you have to do it in-house. And that might not be a full-time person at first. It might be, some other staff, a front desk, a patient care coordinator, somebody who spends just an hour or two a day capturing content, or maybe they block out their Fridays just to do the content and then they're posting it regularly. But I have hosted a lot of panels of various influencers, a lot of different talks and stuff like that. And you go down one by one and every single one says they do it in-house. Every single one, including all the ones with client. Like not a single client that I have had with any significant following has outsourced their social media. Like in following, I'm going to say an engagement, right? Real followers, engagement, right? Like not
there you go.
Single
there's
one.
the answer, right? There's the answer.
Yeah, and then in terms of how much time they should be investing in it or whether it's still a workable strategy, I mean, we were talking about the need to diversify. TikTok showed us that this last week. It's back. But it's only kind of been granted a lifeline and extension a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were panicking if they, especially content creators who make their entire livelihood off that. But it really shows you that you need to diversify. I think it's going to be harder and it's going to become increasingly more difficult to have social media be a mainline source of patient acquisition, which of the various types of clients we serve, we talked about plastic surgeons earlier, it would be medical spas that I would say, if we look at people who focus almost solely on social media for their patient acquisition, I would say the majority of them are med spas out of our clients, if that makes sense. Meaning we see with plastic surgery and other specialties, they do spend a little bit more on advertising, particularly heavy on Google Ads. But there are some medical spas that really their whole business is built on social media. I'm not saying that will go away entirely for them, but I think it'll be harder for newcomers to create that. It already is. And I think it's going to become increasingly, there'll be, the practices that are thriving off social media now. I think over time they will kind of be hemmed in. As you said, these platforms sort of triangulate you into becoming pay to play users. And that's going to happen. Or the government will shut one of them down, or AI will really change content creation, which is the thing I was going to get to. So you really just need to be diversified. And that's the number one thing we practice, we preach and practice,
For sure.
Yeah. And just to add to that, like, it's so dangerous. Whenever I hear or see a practice that's fully built on one social media platform, even if that social media platform, even if that social media platform survives and it does well, like Instagram's done well for a long time, things change, right? Like we all know that Instagram's been touchier recently. They banned more posts. They shut down more things. They are more particular, which is another subject to get into, but like things change even within platforms. And
there's always going to be new social media stars coming up. I mean, every single day there's going to be another one. So
exactly. And we have, I would say, about 15 to 20% of our client base has a substantial social media platform, like and substantial following from their various social media platforms, right? And with that said, the fact that they are still using us for SEO or ads or email marketing or everything else, it's intelligent, because that means that even if they're booked from 2 years because of their social doing so well, which we do have clients like that, they have all these other things in place where they're ranking really well and they have other things going for them, and they're sort of just using all the resources that they have. Also, those resources might not even be digital marketing, right? That could be other things as well. And that's the way to do it. It's like a portfolio. Like, just because one stock you see constantly improve, you're not going to put all your money into that one stock, right? You're going to diversify your portfolio, and you're going to have, high risk and low risk, short-term and long-term options in your financial investment. And that's exactly how to look at marketing. It's really, that is the same way to look at marketing. So don't put your eggs in all one basket.
Yeah. And Max, taking that analogy to the extreme, if, AI is the Bitcoin, let's say, of investing, I'm so curious what you were going to say about the future of social media with AI, because are we talking Cyberdyne systems, Skynet going to take over and they're going to activate?
Well, eventually the AGI, the artificial general intelligence, or the artificial super intelligence may happen. I think we're starting to see, like, it peaked its head up and it really startled a lot of people, but now it's kind of plateauing, certainly within marketing, and I think in other walks of life as well. I wish I knew what the play was on the Bitcoin side. My mind thinks about the cautionary tale, or the things to be mindful of. But yeah, I wish I could say this is how you play it. If you have a bag you're looking to stick into the next big thing, here's where you should go. I'll give you that some thought. But because, like we said, we see it as a lot of different kind of portfolio, a lot of kind of different vehicles. If you think about it from a financial portfolio, investment portfolio perspective, like Erica said, we really do think that way. You're going to want to have a number of different things in there to kind of reach your goals. But here's the points I was getting at. There's two trends in AI that I think will impact social media, and I think if they don't come to full fruition this year, I think by 12 months from now, we'll be sitting here going, we really see them taking shape at least. One is you have the ability to create AI avatars, which are still not there, but just in the last 6 months, I've seen them become increasingly, like, scarily good, to where some people who maybe have a less trained eye or are not as digitally native are fooled by them, and they don't know that it's AI. I think that will get really good. What you have right now, there are platforms where I can either generate my own script or have AI generate a script, and then after feeding it some video of me, also shoot out an entire video and post it on social media. And I've seen some that are close.
Yeah.
And you can say translate this into as many languages, any language. And you can say, I don't have an idea for a script, so just generate the whole thing. This is my business. This is my industry. We talked a lot about content and how much can AI achieve your voice. I do believe in the next few years it will be able to do that, actually. But right now it's not there. But people don't care on social media. They just want to put out a volume of content. So I think that even if it's not perfect, you're going to see that start to happen more. Maybe not less, maybe less in our space, but you're going to see it. What it's going to do is devalue that kind of content. And there will be an opportunity for someone. Actually, that is the truth, Alex, is there will be an opportunity for someone who's coming up with the right new content formats, because that's going to be garbage. No one will care about that anymore. What I do believe right. Yeah, you got it. Exactly. Okay, cool. That worked for, certain marketing buzzwords, right? They work for a minute. I think if you just kind of logically string it together, what I'm kind of calling reality content is what will win. The stuff where the viewer sees that something's going to happen and unfold on screen and they don't know what it's going to be yet, and they want to see how it unfolds. That could be man on the street. That could be a reveal of a procedure with a patient who's, you don't know how they're going to react. And AI can't script it. And if AI did script it, I'm uninterested. I want to know what's going to happen organically. So I believe that kind of content will rise. The other trend, which relates to AI, or it's not so much a trend, but it's just something that there's bubblings of, is Meta's talking about replacing content creators entirely with AI. So right now you do have content creators who are leveraging AI to create fast, crazy volumes of content. And you can say it's AI and it's probably not that good, but they're producing it at volume, and it's probably effective for those creators. This would be Meta just going like, we're going to take you, the content creator, out, who's been providing all this free content that we've been monetizing with ads for years, and we're just actually going to have AI create it. And think about how good AI will be at self-optimizing too, and going, oh, people loved this and they watched this, let's just make more of it. And as soon as the imagery gets good enough, or I was saying to Erica, like maybe it'll be an animated series that AI
Yeah.
creates like a cartoon for, but maybe it's for different, age brackets, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're thinking, I just want to tune in to see what happens in the next installment, because all they want to do is keep you glued. So that is really interesting. If the content creator is replaced by AI, what will the small business owner do to swim up against that stream of scripted, fabricated, inauthentic, essentially not human created? There will be an opportunity, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's like, again, like, let's get back to, this is a real human being. This is not an avatar. Or there'll be some unexpected, unforeseen thing that grows up. Like, people will start using AI to watch the AI content, and it'll just be, AI
Yeah.
talking to AI, and then you'll need somebody to kind of filter through it or something. Who knows?
Who knows? We don't know, but we know that it's going to, I do believe it will create opportunities. And
Yeah.
the chaos and randomness of something that's not pre-scripted will be interesting. Oh, I want to see how this
Yeah.
unfolds.
Yeah. Like, I would love to
Um,
see real life and non-AI
because that's what it will
generated.
be.
Yeah,
You know,
I'd love to
maybe
see
it's
it.
maybe it's like reality TV when everything was scripted. Why was that so popular? Because it was a window into real life. Social media is that on
Yeah.
another level, and this may only bolster that desire to see real life. I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
probably directionally
Interesting.
accurate.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I personally can't wait for AI to take over and we all become slaves to the machines, or maybe we all get plugged into the matrix, something like that, and it just all becomes a virtual world. I would love to. I could keep talking to you guys all day about this stuff. We are bumping up against time. I want to give you both a shot at, as we move into, we're getting into the in February before long, we're going to be, through with Q1. Like, what's one thing you want folks to think about for 25 going forward? There's a lot to think about. I realize we can't boil that down to a few minutes, but what's kind of one takeaway you want to leave with? Erica, we'll start with you.
Sure. I mean, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to go back to diversifying your portfolio. Do not put your eggs in one basket. It is the biggest thing I could tell any practice owner. You need to have a lot of different strategies, and they are not all digital marketing. Those are your events, your patient loyalty. Maybe it's a billboard, maybe it's a radio spot, maybe it's TV ads. It can be so many different things, but it has to be a lot of things. I always tell people to have a minimum of 10 different channels of patient acquisition, meaning that might be SEO, Google ads, Meta ads. It might be events. It might be patient loyalty program. It might be, you know what I mean? Like, you just keep going, but you should have at least 10, because it's impossible to have all 10 firing off all at once. Like, things will happen. Algorithms will change, and ad will get banned. There will be a few that suffer at some point, even if it's just for a couple weeks or a couple months. So if you have so many channels going at the same time, it will mitigate anything that might change on a singular channel. But you should.
And you mentioned about Meta changing its ads, right? I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Because
So
that's a good example of that, right?
yeah, Meta constantly does updates, especially with some of the restrictions from Apple and iOS and different things. But they're doing a large update in March where they are restricting, Meta uses things called pixels, right? To sort of track information and give you targeted ads. That's why you can go online and you could Google about how to get rid of wrinkles, and then you go on your Instagram and you get a sponsored ad on Botox, right? Like, we all know this happens. How, and the specifics of how the algorithms work, we don't really know, but that does happen, right? And Meta is saying that they're going to be restricting a lot of various tracking and a lot of those pixels coming in March. And a lot of practices do a lot of Meta ads. And when I say Meta, it's a parent company for Instagram. I'm talking about those sponsored Instagram posts that come up when you scroll, right? And that is a pretty large change. And it brings up a bigger subject, which is PHI and HIPAA, right? Like, it's a really gray area. There are ethical concerns about it. It's funny because as a marketer, I rely on these tools to some degree, right? But I also diversify my channels. But even for myself, if I'm totally straightforward, in the back of my mind, I even wonder about the ethical concerns about some of these things, right? And this isn't something that's a legal liability for the practice. This is more like for the platform itself. Like, is it okay that Meta and TikTok and like does that level of tracking on medically related subjects? And every year they're tightening it up. So I do feel that to some degree, they're leaning towards a direction of, no, we're going to have to do less pixels. We're going to have to do less tracking. We're going to have to do less targeting. I mean, TikTok doesn't even allow you to do like targeted like Botox or filler ads or anything like that at all. But Instagram is tightening it up more and more and more, even with some of the organic content, which I'm sure people notice themselves. So I am curious to see how much, like, where we're going to go on that in social media in the future. I think there'll be always the promotion of the practice and the practice brand and things like that. But the targeting of people for specific procedures, they are trying to control more. And speaking
I'll believe
of brand,
it when I see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like it's, for once that starts to happen, we'll have to talk again because that's super interesting. I didn't know that was going on. Max, any final takeaways?
Well, I agree with Erica wholeheartedly. And as we kind of talked about this a little bit already, but as marketers, when one channel becomes glutted, what's interesting is it creates opportunities and old channels reemerge again. We've seen this with, direct mail as an example, has value again. I essentially think TV ads will come back, but they'll come back I know they will, in fact. They'll come back as streaming ads. And it used to be that, you couldn't advertise on Netflix. Now you can. Hulu, you could advertise on if you spend $50,000 with them, minimum ad purchase. Now you can do a $500 minimum purchase. But the targeting locally based on, we don't have time to get into it now, but you can actually target income and other demographics and obviously geolocation very well with over the top is what they call it, which is whether that's your Roku, your Apple TV, it's that box that sits on top of your TV box, your cable box. They call it over the top advertising, or streaming ads, which I think probably the right word for it. I think that's going to come back. So that's a good example of a great way to diversify. I think we're going to see people diversifying like crazy. My only other bit of advice, since I like to talk philosophically about AI and how it may or may not change things, is there are some, I'll give you just two quick things that you can do now today, leveraging those tools that are good, that I think people are actually a little too scared to do, but they shouldn't be. And if they jump on this now, they'd be early. One is use AI in your lead follow-up and your marketing automation with texts and emails to follow up on those leads. People are a little scared because it's generating content for you on the fly, and they're like worried it may not speak their brand. But we see a few people who are really willing to lean into that. They're winning. Also using AI on the website at the initial lead capture. We've trained some AIs to really speak the brands. It's more about putting guardrails there and say, do not talk about this. Do not talk about price. So we're speaking the brand language, but more importantly, we're making sure they don't talk about things the brand doesn't want to because they're scared. But the people who are willing to do that are also seeing great return there in terms of, I mean, think about it. How much time can you save not having to have a chat conversation with every single lead that comes into your website? And we're seeing that work too. Those are two things. And if people have questions on how they can implement this, and they're not, whether they're working with Influx or not, they feel free. They can reach out to us. We'd be happy to point them towards some of the right apps and platforms that they could be looking at for this.
Sure.
They can go to our website and just kind of hit us up, and we'd be happy to help.
No, I appreciate that. And let's I would love as we wrap up, what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you guys if they want to hear more about Influx? You guys obviously are a wealth of information. We'll have you guys back too. I would love to talk further about all these topics, but what's the best way to get in touch with you? And then Erica, you're going to be at MSS, so folks can see you there.
Yeah, I was gonna say they could stop by and see us at MSS. I have a talk there, but we also have a booth there, so you can just come on by and talk with us. Okay. Otherwise, just go to influxmarketing.com, right? You could reach out to us there. There's a chat there. You could call us, that form, and you could just look around too.
I love it. Well, thanks to you both. I appreciate your time. I know you guys have a lot going on, and there's some serious stuff, that makes all this stuff seem kind of trivial, but it's appreciated, and it's great information. And let's definitely schedule a time to get back on and talk more about, AI in the March 30th or in March with Meta, I think is going to be crazy. I didn't know that was going to happen. I can't wait to hear more about that.
Yeah.
Let's definitely do it. Thank you for your time, Alex. I appreciate it. It was kind of a welcome break from everything we're doing here. So
awesome.
It was nice. It was nice. Thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate that.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for listening to or watching the Medical Spa Insider podcast. Please follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future episodes. For more information about the American MedSpa Association, please check our show notes or in the description below.